Hello, welcome to Japan Korea MINIPEDIA. This is the fourth session on politics and government. Today we will discuss Korean politics in comparison with the Japanese politics of the previous session. I'm trying to upload this show twice a week, hopefully on Tuesday and Friday, with some exceptions. Well, let me compare South and North Korea. As you know, the Korean Peninsula was divided into North and South Korea, and we have two different entities in the Korean Peninsula, which consist of actually same homogeneous people. The formal name of the entity in South is Republic of Korea. We have a population of almost 52 millions, and the capital city is Seoul. And a modern government was formed in 1948, and the area of South Korea is about 100,000 square kilometers, and per capita GDP as of last year was 47,000 US dollars. And as you know, the head of the state, president, is Yoon Suk-yeol. Now let's take a look at the North Korea, of which the formal name is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And population is about slightly more than 25 million. So it is about the half of South Korean population. And the capital city is Pyongyang. And the government in North Korea was formed in September 1948, so the same year. As you know, as you remember, the Japanese colonial rule was finished 1945, and there was a really transition period, really a period of uncertainty and disorder in the entire Korean Peninsula. And in 1948, the former governments were formed in North as well as South Korea. The area of North Korea is slightly larger than South Korea, 120 square kilometers. And per capita GDP, actually, it is very difficult to obtain any convincing, objective data on North Korean economic indicators. But latest number for North Korean per capita GDP was about 1,800 US dollars as of now 2016. So if we calculate again for 2021 price index, it is still far lower than South Korean income. And the head of state of North Korea is Kim Jong-un, who is who's actually most widely used title is the chairman of Defense Committee of North Korea. And as you know, there was one dynasty, Yi dynasty, in the Korean Peninsula for a long time, about 6 centuries, from 1392 to 1897. And then it was replaced by Korean Empire for a very brief period, just before the annexation by Japan. So 1897 through 1910, it is only 13 years. Then we had a colonial period ruled by Japan for 36 years, from 1910 to 1945. So after that, the ending of colonial period, South Korean Peninsula on the right was divided into South and North Korea. Again, as we just mentioned, there was a temporary government period in both South and North Korea for 3 years. And then a new government emerged in 1948 under the name of Republic of Korea in South Korea and DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea in North Korea. Then again, sadly enough, the two regimes, two countries fought a war in Korean War from 1950 to 53. So today, as in the map on the right side, we have a divided nation into two countries, socialist North Korea and capitalist South Korea today. Now let's take a quick look of the post-war South Korean history. I want you to remember that we have 6 republics so far, and current republic is a 6th republic in South Korea. But each republic is named when there is a new constitution. That if there is a really fundamental change in the constitution, particularly regarding the power structure, people call it is a new constitution, so new republic. So First Republic was under President Lee Syngman, of him we discussed in the previous session. President Lee ruled for 3 terms from 48 to 60. Then very briefly, there's a new president, Yoon Bo-sun, for several months actually, in 1960 through 61. Then in May 61, there was a military coup, led by President Park Chung-hee in that year. So he formed a military government that lasted from 1961 to 63. Then he retired from army, then became a civilian, and he took the power of South Korea for a long time. 1963 to 1972, he served 5 presidential terms, and that period is called Third Republic. Then in 1972, he actually changed the constitution again so that the election for presidency was changed to indirect election. So he he renewed his presidential term easily. So he served for several years. Then briefly there was and then sadly as you remember in 1981 there's a incident where chief of Korean CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, killed his boss, President Park, in a dinner party. So that actually we could end of military rule. So there was a new president, Choi Kyu-hwa, who was the prime minister under President Park. But he served the presidency very briefly, several months, I guess. Then another army general, Chun Do-hwan, took the power from that civilian president, Choi Kyu-hwa. And then he became he actually opened the 5th Republic by revising the constitutional law. And he served 2 terms. At that time, the presidential term was 4 years. So he served 2 4-year terms. That was a 5th Republic. Then we have a new era from 1988. In 1988, Korea became a bit more visible in the world history because it actually had a Seoul Olympic Games. In Seoul Olympic Games, Mr. Roh Tae-woo, who was actually also Army General, even he was a classmate of Chun Do-hwan in the Army Academy. He retired from Army and became a civilian. He served as a Olympic Committee chairman. Then, using those in that title and those support from the military, he became president. But except for Mr. Roh, are the following presidents of the current Sixth Republic are all civilians. Let me read the names one by one. Kim Young-sam, Kim Dae-jung, Roh Moo-hyun, Lee Myung-bak, Park Geun-hye, Moon Jae-in, and current Yoon Suk-yeol. If you are familiar with Korean politics, all these names should be familiar to you. Kim Young-sam was the first civilian president in the current Sixth Republic. He was a member of Parliament, National Congress for a long time. Also, he was a renowned fighter for democracy. So Kim Young-sam and Kim Dae-jung were two leading figures in actually ending the military rule and ushering civilian control, civilian government in South Korea. And I also actually colored Kim Dae-jung and Roh Moo-hyun in purple. The reason is Mr. Kim Dae-jung opened a new era of government with liberal/leftist ideologies. So as you see, Kim Dae-jung, Roh Moo-hyun, and then later Moon Jae-in are three presidents who come from the liberal/leftist ideology, political philosophy and background. But after Kim Dae-jung and Roh Moo-hyun, we had Lee Myung-bak and Park Geun-hye presidency. Mr. Lee was a businessman. His final title was actually member of the director in Hyundai Group. He was a purely businessman, but with his reputation as a businessman, he became a president. But he somehow, after the presidency, he somehow was involved in some corruption case. So he was sentenced. He was in prison, but today he is actually briefly out of prison to have a medical treatment in the hospital. And Park Geun-hye is a lady, woman. She is the daughter of President Park of three republic, third and fourth, fifth republic. And actually, with the innocent aura of his family, also her political background, she became first women president. But as you remember, approaching her actually last year of tenure, some tragic accident happened of a Seoul ship sunk during her presidency. So she became the target of criticism of mismanagement or even concealing her schedule as a president, etc. So she was impeached and also indicted. So she was was put in prison, but she got paroled quite lately. So she's finally out of prison and currently spending normal days. And President Moon Jae-in was latest president, and we will discuss him later. But he actually ushered new changes in Korean policies. Particularly, he tried to normalize the relation with the Pyongyang government. So he even visited Pyongyang and had talks with Kim Jong-un. And then this year, we have this new President Yoon Suk-yeol, and okay, we'll talk about Yoon Suk-yeol from now. So if this is current political parties in Korea. We have incumbent parties, People Power Party, 국민의 힘 in Korean, and then we have opposition parties, 4 parties, but basically Democratic Party or 더불어민주당 in Korean is the single largest opposition party, which is actually larger than incumbent party in terms of the member of National Assembly members. Democratic Party had 169 members compared to 115 members of National People's Power Party. So this is really a huge gap in this disadvantage of current incumbent party. People's Power Party has only 39% of the Congress, while the Democratic Party is close to 60%. So, and then we have a Justice Party, which is a liberal party, having 6 seats, and a Basic Income Party and Transition Korea Party is only 1 seat in the National Assembly. And there are really 40 parties with no seat in the Assembly. So basically we are talking two major parties of conservative and liberal stream, and 3 very tiny parties. So this will naturally, this situation will make the leadership of incumbent President Yoon Suk-yeol very difficult in forming and implementing policies, because in pass the laws in the National Assembly, Democratic Party has a really decisive power. If Democratic Party cooperate with the Justice Party, it can easily deter any major bill that requires 2/3 of National Assembly seats. Okay, now let's take a quick look at Yoon Suk-yeol administration under President Yoon Suk-yeol. Mr. Yoon he was born in 1960, so he's 61 years old, relatively young in Korean politics. And quite exceptionally, his sole profession has been a prosecutor. I mean, he went to schools, and he spent several years to prepare the bar exam of Korea to become a lawyer. Then he served as prosecutor all along, no other vocation. So some people think that this simplistic background, work experience, could be a hurdle for him to produce policies, particularly dealing with opposition party members who most of whom had been in politics for 20, 30 years, right? So he's in a sense a novice, beginner in politics. Okay, well, this is the top power structure of Korea. You have Office of the President on the left. It is headed by a person who is a minister level. This is a position, and he has 5 major chief assistants. Each has really dozens of staff, and those 5 people are at the rank of vice minister. And separately, as you remember, we just talked about the huge, beautiful blue house in Seoul, where presidents had been living and working for a long time, but Mr. Yoon, struck a new policy that he will move out of, this, Blue House and move into a new office building and new presidential presidency, which is under construction today. Anyway, so inside that presidential quarters, we have another important office, which is the National Security Office, where we have a director at the minister level and two vice director at the vice minister level. These are really, so major policies on foreign policies or security policy will be decided by the group that consists of president and the National Security Office members and the foreign minister and the leaders of the military. So this is very important functions. And so the office of the president is like White House office in the U.S. In the cabinet, we have a prime minister. Mr. Han Duck-soo is a economic bureaucrat who had been in service for really many years. And you have two deputy prime ministers, one in charge of economic planning, another one in charge of education. Korean government has been trying to put more emphasis, value, educational services. So the education minister, the charging minister was usually regular minister, but it was promoted to a deputy prime minister ranking. And you have 18 ministries, so we have 18 ministers. And other than the ministries, we have 5 commissions: the Finance Commission, Fair Trade Commission. They are very also, purpose specific, organizations that are very powerful, actually, ones in those particular areas. Also, we have 22 mission-wise offices: tax office, prosecutor office, police agency. So Mr. Yoon, the final title before he became president was the head of prosecutor's office. Okay. Well, now, on the right side is actually the rating of performance rating of President Yoon Suk-yeol, which is very actually disappointing for him. I mean, the latest figures show that 2/3 of Korean citizens do not support President Yoon. Well, I mean, this is no place to discuss this, why Mr. Yoon is so unpopular in Korea today. But we can usually, the major reasons are, one is the lack of his experience, national politics and government experience. In a sense, every issue is new to him. So maybe his term of 5 years could be a really continuous process of learning. That is one concern. And another one is incumbent party under this President Yoon is quite hard in attitude. So usually compromise and negotiations are really important functions in politics. But current People's Power Party under President Yoon is very, in a sense, quite straightforward and direct and non-compromising. So we wonder really how this lack of support trend will continue. So this is his first year. Okay. Now on the left side is actually in support for Kishi, Prime Minister Kishi in Japan. Well, his support rate is around at the beginning in the 40s, and then the second stage support for him is in the 50s, right? Which is far better than Mr. Yoon, but still compared to other Japanese prime ministers. This is actually relatively disappointing figures, particularly the lately non-support opinions are increasing. Now it is approaching 40%, which is quite, disappointing figure. Unlike the Korean Republic's presidency, the Japanese government is actually a cabinet. So if actually the incumbent party is not popular, well, they can actually dissolve the Shugin lower house and do the re-election to recover or to confirm the support for a ruling party. So overall, both Mr. Kishida and Mr. Yoon are not really enjoying strong support from the people. Well, I'd like to, in this session, basically I'm trying to provide you with objective, proven facts and figures. But sometimes we need to have some room for discussion. In the previous sessions, I talked about really very stable, long-running, conservative government in Japan, and the lack of strikes or the even demonstrations or even uprising or revolutions, etc. That means after Meiji Restoration, Japanese politics has been very stable, basically. No single event which actually changed the government structure at all. But on the other hand, we remember that there are many revolutions and uprising, wide-scale demonstrations, even the killings of presidents, etc. So in early 60s, one scholar named Gregory Henderson, who was actually political officer of the U.S. Embassy in Seoul, later became a political scientist. He wrote a book on the title of The Politics of the Vortex. He observed that Korean politics is really vortex politics. It's continuously, moving under the surface of water and changing the political scenes, and people's demands and wishes are all to take the form of a demonstration, even strikes and nationwide riots. So he said that Korean politics is really the vortex politics, and that observation, I think, is true throughout the post-war period too. You remember, the impeaching the presidents, and even the killing of presidents, in mass-scale student riots and demonstrations, etc. Such phenomena have not been visible, not seen in Japan at all. The Japanese politics is really conformity politics. People follow the rules and procedures. Mass-scale anti-government strikes are almost unthinkable. So we have this impression that Japan is very stable in terms of politics, in terms of government, because not because it is a non-democratic society, but because people conform to the existing rules and norms and all those guidelines, etc. Then we will naturally think that I'm trying to speak this neutrally. Japanese more stable, orderly, society with a democratic government in power. On the other hand, Korea is, even though it is a democratic society, in appearance or in the system, but society is very unstable. The unstable societies are, are unproductive. Overall, we have this, in a sense, learned lessons historically that stable democracy will, develop economically, and unstable society will, have a poor performance in economic development. But lately, this, new trends in Japan and Korea show that those kind of wisdom could be in question, because lately the per capita GDP of Koreans has been, as you see, from since 1980, has been rising very continuously, gradually. And on the other hand, Japan, after those, Japanese economic miracle of 1960s and even 70s, entering 1980s, Japanese economy and Japan as a whole has been, facing difficulties, right? So since 1980, the speed of per capita GDP growth has been far slower than Koreans. So this year, 2021, per capita GDP of Korea actually is higher than the Japanese people. So this is really counter to our memory that Japanese are far more affluent society than Korea, and is very stable democracy, etc. And this is actually the data made by IMF, International Monetary Fund, and IMF expects that after 2020, Korean per capita GDP will be higher than Japanese. So this is really, today is actually the session on politics and government, but this data and the latest trends actually provide us some questions that we may need to consider the natures of Japanese and Korean societies in a new way, right? So I think so we need to really put this in a government structure, in a broader perspective of social development, is the point I want to make. So let me summarize today's session in 3 key statements. Modern politics and administration in the Korean Peninsula could have started after the ending of the colonial rule by Japan in 1945. Then after Korean War of 1950, South Korea had adopted democracy with a presidential system as a government and power structure. And there have been 6 republics, as we discussed so far, of which the change is justified by the revision of constitution in the fundamental ways, such as the formation and structure of governing power. So this numbering republic is not really official recording. The society as a whole, in a sense, tacitly agreed to, name a new republic, number of new republic, after when there is a major change in constitution that have a fundamental impact on power structure, governing structure. Okay, so today in Korea we are living in the 6th republic, where president is Yoon Suk-yeol. Okay, this is for today, and your continued interest and support will help improve this program. If you have any questions or comments, please write to me in that email address. Thank you very much.